this Tuesday, January the 15th, 2019. We welcome all who've joined us, and we have 4 out of our 5 council persons here with us, and we assume that we'll have all 5 shortly.
He's on his way.
He's on his way. So it's and we welcome our staff that's joined here with us this evening. And to start this evening, we have our chief of police who is going, or are you going to do that? Or, okay. Come and introduce some new employees.
Down 2 guys. Gil left in July, and we had another one leave just after that. And then Chief Smith left in August, so we've been down 3 guys. So we went through a testing process that was pretty brutal, and it's really hard to find people right now because it's so competitive out there. I mean, you know, it's a pay, and you know how it is. It's not just police; it's every department. But we ended up with 2. First off, we hired Officer Lauren Locke. This is Lauren. Lauren, she worked in Provo for 3 years. She's got a lot of experience. We're lucky to have her for the simple fact that she was on field training for about 2 weeks. She knows how to do her job and does it very well. She just had to learn the layout of the city, so we're lucky to have her.
We're still learning the layout.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, yeah, I'm Lauren. Like you said, I used to work for Provo. That's where I've been for the past 3 years. I went to school for a while, so I have a bachelor's degree, and I'm currently getting my master's.
And what are you getting your master's in?
In public service. So I love being an officer, and Pleasant Grove's been really awesome to me. Everyone that I've met has been amazing, so I'm a fan.
And where do you live right now?
Currently I live in Mapleton. So got some property out there. Have a lot of dogs, so property, but
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. We're excited to have you. And is she our only full-time female officer?
Yeah, we have 1 part-time,
Is that
Nicole, and then
and she's part-time. Okay, awesome, cool.
lucky to have her.
Yeah.
The cool thing is when I was interviewing her for a job, she told me that she's tired of working at Provo because all those clean-shaven guys look like 17-year-old boys. So
absolutely.
she's ready to jump ship. So hey, it worked.
I'm excited for the opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, Chief, she does really well. She could have your job someday.
Yeah.
She could. She probably deserves it. All right. I don't know if the rest of you know this guy. This is Hayden Sanderson. It's our late great fire chief's son, and he put himself through the first part of the academy at Utah Valley, and he graduated the first part, and so we decided to pick him up, and we're sending him through post so we can accelerate that a little bit and get him out. So by March, March 7th, he graduates, and then he'll start his field training process, which will take a little longer because he doesn't have a bunch of road experience. But the benefit to hiring Hayden was the fact that I've worked here for a long time, and I've known him for a long time, and we didn't have to do a background check on him because I arrested him most of the time, so I knew.
And he knew the lay of the
He
city.
already knew his
pretty much
priors.
everything he's done and the truth about it. So
Yeah. Well, tell us, I mean, for those who might not know you, tell us a little about yourself.
I'm Hayden Sanderson, born and raised here, so I'm pretty excited to be a part of Pleasant Grove now, not only because of my dad, but to make my own name here, so pretty excited.
And where do you live right now?
I'm just a couple roads up on 200 North.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Got a wife, I have a little 3-year-old daughter and 6-month-old little boy.
Oh, wow.
So calling it quits, man. Boy and a girl, we're good there.
Good call.
Yeah, I know, right? But yeah, no, I'm excited to be here. That is true.
Awesome. Well, welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, guys. Welcome. Hey, Scott.
So we have ranked choice voting on the agenda. We had talked to them back in November about coming to explain to you what ranked choice voting is and kind of what that process is. We asked them to come in January, and so we put them on the agenda. We never heard back from them, so I think they're here, so we won't be hearing from them today. So we can just move on to the next agenda item.
Okay, well, our next item is you.
We'll talk flotation devices out at Manila Pond. So if everybody's familiar with Manila Creek Park and the pond that we have out there, it's initially was built for secondary water storage. I'm going to have Dion kind of talk a little bit about the history of the park and how it came about, what the intent was of the initial use. It did involve the Planning Commission. There was it's a conditional use permit for some of the uses out there. And then we'll talk about kind of what's, after Dion talks about the history, then I'll probably jump back up here and we'll talk about moving forward. The reason this is on the agenda, I think we had a couple of you reach out to us and say, hey, we have residents calling up saying we want to be able to use our flotation devices outside of the roped area, or we have people outside of the roped area, nobody's enforcing it. So I think we just need to address it and figure out what we want that to look like moving forward. We might have to go back to Planning Commission. And then we do have an agreement with Mr. Robert Scow when we bought the property. And we just thought about this today, and we haven't reviewed the agreement. Does use address our agreement with you? Okay. So, doesn't sound like we need to worry about that. So with that, I'll have Dion come up and talk, and we'll go from there.
Marty will probably chime in because he was involved heavily in the design of this park. Like Scott mentioned, it was designed as a secondary water pond reservoir initially. As we got looking at the uses and the space that it was going to provide, we decided to build a park on top of that. At the time, Fish and Game approached us, and we kind of started working together on the urban fishery and on those agreements. Part of that process was making sure that we fish station, and we actually went an extra little bit and put in a spawning area on the east side where it's a little more shallow. After that, we kind of got looking a little more at the uses, and we went, and I don't know how many other secondary ponds that we looked at from Salt Lake down to Spanish Fork, Springville, getting ideas on the design and what we wanted to see there. And we kind of come up with a lot of them were using them as swimming areas or beach areas. And so that's the reason that we put the beach in, was we felt it would be a nice feature to the pond on top of everything else, understanding that they would be restricted behind the rope. Well, we got everything built. Fish and Game love it. It's one of their better, more used fisheries that they have. There is no regulations restrictions with swimming and that with the fish. Their main concern is that there would be a conflict between the fishermen and the users out on the water. You know, it's a very narrow, tight pond, and so you can cast about 3/4 of the way if you're pretty good. We've had a few incidences over the years, but not many, where we've had a little bit of conflict between the two uses. And the Fish and Game, they're really, their biggest fears, I've talked with them over this, is that we do allow open swim or open use, and then down the road we get more complaints, and then we remove the fish, because this is one of their most popular areas for fishing. I just thought I'd kind of fill you in on the motion from the Planning Commission. The motion was to approve the request of Pleasant Grove City for a conditional use permit to operate a public wading beach and urban fishery as part of the outdoor public recreation facility within the park known as Manila Creek Park. So the conditions: no parking shall be permitted on the south side of 3300 North. Division of Natural Resources shall monitor the water quality and shall stock the pond with fish and provide maintenance for the facility, maintenance to the fishery. Division of Natural Resources, DNR. And then there was some staff findings, and I can read those if you'd like. But that's kind of what brought us up to it. We did work with the community or the neighborhood. Originally, the restrooms and everything were on 3300 North. We felt like that would be too close to the homes with the fish cleaning station and the restrooms, so we moved that around. And at the time, Alpine School District owned all the property to the south. And so we had a kind of a complex park that we had agreed kind of upon to move forward with, but obviously the school district sold and now it's in homes. So we're kind of limited. I mean, what we have is there as far as parking and everything. We haven't had any issues with parking, but it is very well used by fishermen early morning and late afternoon, and it's heavily used in the summer. By 10 o'clock, that you can't find a place to put a pop-up tent in or anything. So that's kind of the history. Any questions?
Do you know if we've ever, we don't, but if the DNR ever came back and about testing the water quality?
Well, they test quite often. I want to say it's once a month, actually. I have one of their $1,000 testing units in my office. They left out of there. They got called on a mountain lion thing and had to run real quick. But so they do test frequently, and generally they'll plant over 10,000 fish in that pond a year. So they start generally with our fishing program that we run, and our fishing program has become so successful that we've offered two. We do one in the spring and then one in the fall, and their ending stock is at the beginning of that program.
So through their testing, they would let us know, so, oh, this isn't safe to swim in anymore. Is that basically, or how do we gauge
I would
that?
imagine they would, but the recirculation of that pond is so frequent that for us to have like the algae bloom or anything like that would not. It's just there's too much flow through. When it's that time of the year, the residents are using so much water that it's in and out within a couple days.
So are we putting Deer Creek water in that? So if Deer Creek got contaminated, could we possibly get contaminated?
Shut that off or
Yeah. Downline.
Yeah, I would say 10.
Just about before you were born.
Easy. Oh yeah, it's so the fishing club that they have. It's like I say, there's a lot of people that come from all around to fish out there. They're just like this, you know. You have a ton of people that do fly fish, and they'll come practice, and so they'll catch and release. But yeah, when we drained the pond 4 years ago, probably 4 years ago, to try to get rid of the goldfish, which are back if people would quit dumping their fish out there. And we took out thousands of goldfish out of that. And when we got down to the bottom, I think we only had maybe 20 or 30 trout, a couple other fish that, you know, some bass, some catfish that people had brought in. But for the most part, there was hardly any trout. It's a heavily used fishing pond. There.
Well, so we're asking you what feedback you've received. As we've talked about as staff, we're trying to accommodate both the fishing and the recreational use without too much conflict, nor do we, it's hard to enforce. So right now, if somebody's outside the ropes with a stand-up paddle, if a parks employee's there, they can tell them to move. Other than that, we have to call the police, and that's have to enforce on that level. And so what we're looking for is a way, what we've talked about would be potentially having it be a fishery early morning up till like 10 a.m. and then sometime in the evening or late afternoon. So between 10 a.m. and let's say 6 p.m. people could use it for recreational use, and then other than that it's fishing use the rest of the time. Till when we close the park. I mean, we don't want people there overnight doing that type of stuff. So that's a potential solution. We've talked about maybe just moving the rope and maybe cutting the thing in half, and the east side is fishing and the west side's going to be recreational use, but then you still might have people, you know, crossing the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
Could be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a lot of people who go out in early morning on paddle boards and like at 6 a.m. and I mean, I've just had people over the years ask me, I guess they're confused because the other bodies of water, and just one right up the street allows for both fishing and the flotation devices. It's the Highland Glen Park. And same with down in, I think the Hobble Creek has a body of water down there that allows for both. And so I think it's,
The question is why can't we?
Correct. So there's a way we can do it. I agree with the timing. I think the hours would be confusing, maybe moving the rope, but I don't think those other bodies of water have even a rope roped off. It's just.
Yeah, and I know Highland Glen's bigger than ours. I'm not sure about the Springville one. Is it a decent size? And is it about the same size?
It seems bigger. It seems bigger because I've been there.
Yeah, and because really, if let's just say we had dual use for the whole time, most of the people are going to fish in the morning, and we're not going to have as much people on the flotation. The flotation people will be there more when it's really warm out there, and then the fishermen will come back in the evening, late afternoon, evening, which we could still have some people out there on a hot day still doing their thing. So we're just trying to figure out a way to make sure we don't have inherent conflict. If we do have too many people out there recreating, it's going to be impossible for people to fish. But trying to predict exactly what that pattern is and what that looks like, as staff we've been kind of struggling to figure out what exactly that looks like. So if we have both, then we don't have to worry about enforcement outside of people trying to fish and people getting caught in fishing line. And so that's the conflict we worry about there. And there may or may not be a conflict. Highland Glen's a great example. They do both, and when I've been to that park, they pull it off just fine. Part of it is we only have that limited beach area, which could still be fine for people, but
that also might be a benefit as people kind of stay around that area instead of having the beach around the entire pond, where now they could go where it kind of keeps the fishermen on one side and kind of the beach people at the other. So that might be to our benefit.
No, and that's a good point. And really that east side, and I don't know, Dion, how much room we would need to, if we wanted to keep the spawning efforts there, how much we might want to actually have a little bit there roped off, but it wouldn't be much.
And I know that it gets really crowded right there at the beach, especially with the rope where it's at right now. It's really crowded. But I would love to see more of our families and youth get out there on a paddleboard, get out there on a canoe, just utilize the pond and really, enjoy it, because that's our only big body of water like that in Pleasant Grove. I'd like to see them take advantage of that and use it.
Yeah, so part of what we talked about as staff is when this pond was built, kayaks and stand-up paddle boards and all that wasn't as big as they are now. And now those are huge recreational opportunities. And so that's why we're starting to you'll get some of those questions. Why don't, if we as staff kind of take back the idea that we just have dual use for the full time, let us kind of chew on that one a little bit, and then if there's something we need to, I guess we'll have to look at, see if we have to go back to Planning Commission to see if that's something that we need to amend that conditional use permit. And then we can just, we'll go with that premise if that's where the council is.
Well, there was concerns swimming to begin with, you know, the whole discussion. That's kind of where our thought of the rope coming around the beach.
I thought, if I remember correctly, and I haven't looked at it in a long time, but didn't the conditions specifically say that swimming was only to be allowed in the roped off area? So we have to, if that's the case, then we have to go back to the Planning Commission and ask them to amend that condition.
My concern is that swimming.
Well, yeah, and they probably didn't say paddleboarding, they probably said swimming.
Paddleboard on one side, fish on the other.
You're eventually going to be swimming. Well, so, but along those lines,
I agree with you.
we'll review that, and if it's something we have to take back to them, then we'll make sure you're all on the same page before we approach the Planning Commission. If we look at this and it's not something that we have to go back and amend the conditional use, then we won't worry about that. We'll work on what that policy looks like so that we can have a sign off, because we'll want to have this done, you know, by April 1st, and probably shouldn't take us too long with the direction you've given us. We just want to make sure that there isn't some sort of conflict we're not thinking about. And if we're good to go, then we'll create the policy, let you know what's happening. Because this generally, I don't think the council usually sets the park rules, right? Or do they? Is that something we as staff set? So we'll just let you know kind of this is the direction we're going to staff, and in case you have any concerns, and then we'll just move forward with it.
Okay, we're with you there. Okay.
Same.
Okay.
Okay, that's all
Thank
we
you.
have for that one.
Thank you. Who's asking that?
If you're not familiar with what Robert's talking about, we had a little girl drowned out there a few years back. But no, there was no claim, so there was no negligence. We haven't had that full-fledged discussion. I think, I mean, obviously there's a way to do it if other communities are doing that. So we would just look at
We'll look at what
Highland's doing and what Springville's doing to see if there's something that's going to cause us to want to look at that. But
It's always a concern, Robert. We have our liability is there and the safety of those up there. So
yeah, my guess is there's not a requirement for us to provide those services because other places do that. And then we can just take a look at what that means to us. So I don't know if it's signage or things like that. I mean, if somebody drowns, it doesn't matter if you have a lifeguard there or not, and somebody decides they want to come and take you to task and sue you on that's their, that's their right to do that. Now, whether we're negligent in some manner, that's something that we need to discuss.
okay, what do you have next for us, Scott?
So that's all we have as far as the agenda. If we want to talk about the agenda for our city council meeting, we can.
That'd be fine.
So some of this we already covered last week. Items 9A and B are both changes to our vicinity plan, which is the vicinity plan is something that we adopted that shows future road networks throughout our community. So when property develops, we just want to make sure that we don't have people messing with the road network, because we need to master plan that. So that's what the vicinity plan does. So when somebody comes in and they want to do a development, they have to follow with the vicinity plan. If their development doesn't meet the vicinity plan, then we have to amend the plan. So we have two different developments that are, one of them, the first one, is something that we're going to require a cul-de-sac to come in. I don't know how detailed you want me to go. What time is it?
You have the packet.
Okay. If you guys have had a chance to look through that. In essence, though, they both have to deal with cul-de-sacs, one that we're okay with and one that we're not okay with. So the first one is one that the cul-de-sac makes the most sense. It does impact a neighbor, and that neighbor came to Planning Commission and could possibly be here today to share their concerns. The Planning Commission gave a recommendation, though, to allow that to happen. In item 9B was a little bit of the opposite. We have somebody that's requesting a cul-de-sac that is in conflict with the vicinity plan. The recommendation from Planning Commission was not to allow that to happen. However, they have a right to approach the council. You guys have a right to make that final decision. So they're going to come and explain why they feel they need to have a cul-de-sac as where the vicinity plan says that road needs to go through. 10A is we have a Savage View Estates, which is a development in our community that the original developer had some issues with, and now we have a new person that is going to come and take over this project. And according to the plat, they were supposed to have all their utilities done by a certain date, and they're asking for an extension since there hasn't been anything happening out there for a while. When we get approached on this, it is a city council decision, and generally speaking, we will grant them that so that the property can eventually be developed and they don't have to come back and do the whole platting process again. Because of that, we can extend it for this one here. It looks like for 4 months. Okay. But they're supposed to have it done by May 1st, 2019. Okay. Item 10B is just our bid for our sewer rehabilitation project. Item 10C is purchase of property that we need in order to put in our traffic signal on 220 South that connects into Pleasant Grove Boulevard. We'll go over in detail on that. And then item 10D, E, and F are going to be continued. Meeting just got shorter. What do we decide on 10G on the sign? Okay, so that one will be, will that one just be taken off? Do we even need to have council? Okay.
We don't have G either.
No, G will be completely taken off.
We don't approve signs.
So we had some miscommunication on our end while Daniel was out of town on 10G, and we made sure that it was noticed so that if for some reason we had it figured out and we needed to take action, we noticed it. We're finding out the city council doesn't need to take action on this. So we were going to err on the side of having it noticed as opposed to not noticed. Well, it's all done through, I don't know if the planning commission's involved in the sign, but it's not, city councils usually don't make decisions on signs. That's
Where do we want to?
So what the code says is that the signs in the Grove, the design of the signs for all of them, the concept and the criteria needs to be set up by the city council. So maybe we need to set up a work session where we'll talk about the signs in general in the area, but not just this specific sign. And then staff approves the sign based on the criteria already established by the city council.
But I thought we'd already done that because there's already signs down there.
Correct. So in a lot of cases, we used to have part of the code that was very specific of how we want the signs in there. However, if we still want to, renew that, take a look at it, and maybe decide that we're not going the good route, maybe during a working session, we can work on the details, on the design that we want to see in that area in general, if we see something that we're not okay with it, okay? But it's not sign by sign. That's what staff does. City council just the whole criteria for the zone. No.
We're good. Let's move on. Please.
So item 10H is just permission for a couple individuals with the city to move money between our PTIF account, which is where we keep our long-term savings of money, into our bank account whenever we need to actually.
Can you
spend
clarify
money.
individuals? Because it kind of sounded like it was just anyone that could walk in.
No, it says specifically who the individuals are
gotcha.
that can do that.
Well,
So,
just like for the public.
yeah, it's Denise and.
I just want to make sure the public knew that we weren't just like, sure,
Hey, just come on in.
come on
You
in.
want to move money around?
Yeah.
Come on over.
Because you know what, there might be some people that take you up on that.
There
Scott.
might be. There could be. So that's all we have for today. Our February 5th agenda, that meeting's 3 weeks away. We don't have, I think we have a couple items, but nothing that we felt like we needed to get in front of you today. So once we get a little bit closer on that, we can let you know if there's any items you need to have some advance knowledge on there. So with that, if we maybe do our staff reports right now, and then we can take a break.
Okay, we'll do that. Well, we'll start with Sherry. This is a new one. This is what we've been planning all the time, but we've always run out of time, but so. We're glad to be here. Okay, it's nice to come and be here. Okay, Chief, anything else? Thank you for bringing the new officers in and board there. Okay. Most of our off-duty officers were there because I saw them there. So that's pretty, yeah. We just, okay.
Oh, wow.
Okay, thank you. Chief, do you want to say anything more about Friday to us? And okay. Yeah, about 45 minutes worth.
Would you say 45 minutes, Mayor? Just let me know, because if I need to be there at 10:45.
I think he meant 4 to 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yes, very good.
That's it, thank you.
Look forward to it. I think that, when setting that back 1 week, because I was gone last week, I think worked out really well and got the floor finished in there. And
Really well.
so
So thanks for being out of town. Yes, no, it's drying.
So it will be by Friday.
Tomorrow by
Right.
this time, then we should be back on it.
you can walk on it. You can walk on part of it now, but not all of it. So anyway.
Step on the cracks.
Dion, what else do you have? Okay. Daniel, we welcome you back. It's good to have you back. We're glad you came back. We know you have a choice, okay?
Thank you, appreciate it. No, you guys will hear enough from me later on today.
Okay. Tyler,
Don't have anything tonight.
anything from,
I'm good,
Tina.
Mayor, thank you.
okay? Anything else, Scott?
Nothing.
And Denise,
I know.
losing some of your tan a little bit.
I
but
know.
not
I'm
too
going to have
bad,
to plan
though.
another vacation. Yeah.
Okay, if with that, we will take a, we can do that. Oh, sorry, our IT guy.
I don't know if there's enough time, you might want to do that.
That's, you're the main one we want. I just missed you right here. I've just, so, yes, that'll take the next 15 minutes, so.
Wanted to hold kind of a general projects that we're planning to construct.
Is this going out citywide or just those that are affected on those streets?
The mailer is only going to go out to those directly affected. But the overall. Social active by this project.
That's great. Now, the more information, the better. That's great.
Okay.
Did you say the 23rd at 5?
From 5 to 6:30 at the office room at the rec center. Got this about
Send it out.
an hour ago.
Was it
So
Wednesday?
it's Wednesday?
Way to go, Marty, you just messed me up.
Yeah, the date, the 23rd is right, the date is wrong.
Okay. Thank you, Marty. Not Sid, what do you have for us?
Just countdown to Strawberry Days is on now that we're past the holidays. So we start now. At least I do. I love that week. And Todd posted a couple weeks ago that this was you've hit the 1-year mark, is that right?
I have.
And that got me thinking that this is my 7th year on the council. And so anyway, I just want to say thank you to all of you because it's been a crazy and fun and challenging and rewarding and just an experience I couldn't ever imagine that it would be. So I really appreciate everyone's support and all your help throughout the years, and hopefully my 8th year will be a good one as well. So just thank you.
Thanks. Actually, one thing.
Yes, go ahead.
Last Friday, I did have a chance to walk through the spectacular. I even slid down the pole. He allowed me.
Really? You have to sign a waiver on that, or what?
My life's not worth much, Mayor.
We won't let Tina know that, so. Okay? Oh, you're covered. Diana?
Nope.
Oh, Lynn? Okay, Kathy? You know, I'd just like to know, this morning we met with Hash and Trash. Is that what they called it? North, and Lynn was there. He's the chairman of North Point Solid Waste District, and they went over, and Lynn and I just talked. We some of that information there and the woes with recycling and whatever. I think we'll plan a future work session and talk about that, and we'll also have a future work session on the sewer plant or wastewater or whatever the good term is for that. And so we kind of know what's going on. And then I think we schedule North Point, then you'll understand the recycling situation problems there. Okay? With that, I don't have anything. We'd ask to a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned, and we'll be back at 6 o'clock.